inside of this directive that you need the Insurrection Act or an act of Congress to properly activate, 5240.01. In Section D, as in drone, in Pentagon Directive 524001, that you've all been yammering about for a week, inappropriately, scaring people. You left out the real directive with the real warfare doctrine, because if rules of engagement are what dictate whether or not they can engage, we have a literal Skynet system running since 2012, updates in 2017, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Commission telling everyone to get in on AI in 2020, with General Raymond from Space Force, with Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, and they're all using it with brain-computer interface and other types of mesh networking interface. That would be more sensor technology. So when you go out there and tell people that we're going to have physical armed service members able to raid their front doors, that are going to come and fight them for their guns, it's asinine. Pentagon Directive 3009 can do whatever it wants because it's protected legally. It is the current network-centric warfare doctrine. Now, wait a minute. That does not mean that our Secretary of Defense and, of course, our Boeing planes and other things, that they do not have ways to double-check some of these signals. But the majority of the system is machine learning, AI, and if you don't have a login for these things, if you're not watching it, you won't have access to that. That's a military operations center versus a network or a secure operations center. So, the human combatants have constraints. Lawful order in order for the Department of Defense to act on U.S. soil. So you have to have that posse comitatus. Again, you have to sign the Insurrection Act, or you need an act of Congress. So in other words, 524001 has nothing in it where they can do anything without removing posse comitatus or getting an act of Congress. But Pentagon Directive 3009, that's been deployed since 2012, running with full deployment via Kathleen Hicks, Secretary of Defense, since January 25th. This directive is regarded like a landmine. It's not going to be held accountable. What? The drone. So when we lie to people and we do not explain to them what the manual of war for our current Department of Defense directives, we end up scaring people, leaving them helpless, having them preparing their homes and minds for warfare we are not using. Not even using GPS. Using biosensing and sensing technology with position navigation and timing on the ultra-wideband, with radio access networks and all sorts of ways to throw those electrical signals around you and through you. Now, I appreciate that there's a lot of people out there that think that once we have an election, that things are just going to be 1995. I'm sorry. I truly am. But those of you who have put us in this position, and those of you who refuse to read, by now you should know better. So, please update your friends, neighbors, and selves. The government currently does not have operational procedural authority to come kick at your door and take your gun. But a drone can fly over your home, render you inert in your bed, or interrupt your intracardiac network using intra-body communication. Then what are you going to do? You can't live in a Faraday bag. There are shielding and blocking effects that all of us can do to our home. But ultimately, the signal is generated by the vibration of your DNA resonance. That is what the bioelectromagnetic algorithms are measuring. It is not about what you're wearing, what you put in your mouth, what you have on your body, haptic gear. The systems in electronic warfare use that mesh networking at the molecular scale. That's why the Department of Energy is often involved. If you have any further questions or concerns, please consider seeking the channel, seeking a synergist, and updating your mind, with appropriate directives explained with appropriate procedural, precise indicators of our manual of war for the Department of Defense. Please do not spread any further fear and propaganda. Thank you for your time.